Welcome to Future Talk, the program that examines the global impact of technology and tries to see just where the new technology is leading us. Most of what we know about the world we learned from the media. So on today's program, we're going to look at how journalists are being trained for the 21st century. Our focus is the journalism program at Palo Alto High School, which is one of the largest and most innovative high school journalism programs in the country. I have two guests representing that program. Esther Wojcicki founded the program about 20 years ago and has played a central role in its growth and success. She's worked as a professional journalist, blogs regularly for the Huffington Post, has won numerous teaching awards, and served on the University of California Curriculum Committee, where she helped revise the journalism curriculum for the state of California. She's the advisor for the Campanile, which is the student newspaper at Pali, and she has an additional claim to fame as the mother-in-law of Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google, who was married to Esther's daughter. Paul Kandell is a highly acclaimed teacher who was named 2009 National Journalism Teacher of the Year by the Dow Jones Newspaper Fund. He's been a newspaper reporter, he's worked for Newsweek Magazine, and throughout his teaching career, he's been active in training other journalism teachers, often speaking at state and national conventions. He's the advisor for Verde, which is the student news magazine, and the Pali Voice, which is the school's online journalism portal. And I'd like to welcome both of you to the program tonight.
Thank you.
Esther, how is your journalism program different from most other high school journalism programs?
Well, so in Palo Alto High School journalism program, we have a distinct respect for student rights to their own opinions. So students talk about things and write about things that are important to them. And most other states abide by something called the Hazelwood Law. And Hazelwood basically, in 1988, it was a Supreme Court decision, and it gave the right of first approval, prior approval, to the principal or to the advisor. And so in 43 out of the 50 states, the Hazelwood Law is the law that prevails. However, California passed a law that actually invalidates the Hazelwood Law in California, in other words, supersedes it, so that students in California can actually write about things that are important to them. So here in Palo Alto, we take this very seriously.
But does that make a difference in how they're trained? I mean, is there something different about the way you train the students, the way you provide skill sets, aside from the fact that they can write about what they want?
Well, it helps them think. So, for example, Palo Alto High School students, in order to come up with your own story ideas, you have to think. And if you're given story ideas, well, then you just follow the instructions. But in Palo Alto, the kids actually come up with their own ideas. So what's important to me is not necessarily what's important to them. And so, I mean, we read stories, or they write stories, and of course I read them, about things that I would never even think about writing about. And I can give you some examples.
Well, let me ask you this. What are some of the main traits that you're looking for in a journalism student? What are the factors that sort of predict success in this field?
Well, we take everybody. Literally, we take all students who want to be part of the journalism
program. And I understand
program.
A lot of students at the school take your classes. They must like them a lot.
Yes, well, we like all the students, and we really like kids. And so basically what we're doing is we take all students, but let's see, what would be a good predictor of future success in journalism is a very inquisitive mind. And also the ability to ask questions that are difficult. So standing up in a crowd and asking the questions that everybody has in their mind but is afraid to ask. So we try to train our kids to actually think and then to ask those difficult questions and not to be fooled by any sort of advertisement or propaganda or things that, they might traps they could fall into.
I wonder how you train them to think, because it's obvious that they need to think if they're going to be journalists, but you just tell them you need to think, or is there some kind of methodology that enable or puts them in a situation where they have to develop that?
So I think one of the ways that we train them to think is, for example, so you send kids out to some kind of an event that happened. So we have things like Spirit Week, which just happens to be a Palo Alto High School event. And what you want to do is have the kids go and get all the information. So what's happening at Spirit Week? And so kids come back with all the information, you know, they write it down helter-skelter, however they do. So then the question is, what is the most important? And so figuring out what is most important turns out to be really hard for kids. And they're used to telling narrative stories, so they're used to telling a story, and then the punchline comes at the end. So in newspapers, nobody wants to read like a 500-word story only to find out the news at the end of the story. So they have to find the news at the beginning of the story. So the kids have to learn how to figure out, so what is the most important thing?
They've got to get to the point right away.
You have to get to the point right away. And also, so let's say, for example, there are, you know, 3 or 4 important things. So how do you know what to feature? What is the most important part? So that helps them get started thinking. And then they look at other stories and the way...
Actually, we went out to Pali last week and we actually videotaped some of the students and some of the teachers. And we're going to show that video right now. It's a few minutes long, and then we're going to come back and continue our discussion of the Palo Alto High School journalism program. So let's go ahead and roll that tape. Palo Alto High School has one of the largest and most successful high school journalism programs in the country. It was started by Esther Wojcicki about 20 years ago and includes people like Paul Kandell, who was named 2009 National Journalism Teacher of the Year by the Dow Jones Newspaper Fund. I spoke to some of his beginning students. And why did you decide to take a journalism class?
Well, the journalism programs here at Pali are like phenomenal, and I'd really like to be involved in them. And so this is one of the prerequisites for joining one of the publications here on campus.
Pali is known for its prodigious journalism program, and Mr. Kandell is a very acclaimed teacher, and same with Woj, who is the Campanile advisor. And it's just a really good thing to know how to report news and be in the know with the coming events of the world. And I really want to aspire to be hopefully a magazine editor of some kind. That's why I want to write for Viking next year, which is a sports magazine.
The students put out several high-quality publications, including the Viking sports magazine. Ellen Austin is teacher advisor for the Viking.
We believe that we're the first magazine of this kind in the country at the high school level. We're an all-sports publication, 64 pages of all high school sports 6 times a year. And we believe that this is, at our school, 40% of our student body plays a sport. That means 1 in 2 kids on our campus is in a sport. So we think that this is really relevant, and this is what kids care about. So we've really made the commitment to tell those stories. And we do a lot of sports journalism training.
Do you think that a lot of the students are actually going to go on to become journalists?
Very few of them will go on to become journalists, but this isn't as much about creating a job mentality as it is about getting the idea of telling the stories of your community and being aware of this town forum that we're in. Also, frankly, as a teacher, I have the First Amendment posted over there about freedom of the press. I think as a citizen in this country, journalism is where we see that First Amendment going to work, and the kids are going to be citizens first.
I also spoke to some editors of the Viking.
My favorite part is probably production week, which is when everything kind of comes together. And I really like that because everyone is here and everyone stays here pretty much all night long for a week. And that's when most of the stories are already written, and it's just the final editing and then putting it all together, and you can really see the magazine coming together, which is just really fun and really exciting.
My favorite part about working on the mag this year has been doing the online news content. So we've had beat teams go out this entire year for each sport, and we've covered them the way a daily paper would. So it's been really fun taking on another challenge in addition to our 64-page magazine.
There's also a student newspaper called the Campanile. I spoke to one of its editors.
In addition to learning just writing skills and improving that, you really learn how to communicate effectively with a group of different people, because on staff we have people who are incredibly quiet, people who are incredibly loud, people who are Republicans, Democrats. So you really learn how to communicate with every kind of person on here. You learn how to make persuasive arguments. And because the class is so self-organized, you also learn some leadership skills and how to calm a room And I think really you learn a lot of social skills that are going to help you a lot when you're dealing with groups in life or even just public speaking skills.
Okay, so that was some of our footage from Palo Alto High School in the journalism program. Now, Paul, this is very interesting because that last speaker was speaking about leadership skills, social skills, all kinds of things that are very useful, not only in journalism, but in life in general. Do you make an effort to inculcate those kind of qualities, leadership, teamwork in your students, and how do you go about training kids to do that?
We absolutely make a conscious effort to work on those things. I think that in setting up the structure to put together a publication requires an immense amount of communication. Somebody's got to lead that communication. In many other classrooms, something complex like that would be led by teachers, but students are capable of doing that, and we kind of throw them off the deep end with guidance, and they rise, they do it. It's a very complex thing to put out a magazine that's at that length, or to maintain a website that's updated 24/7, and they can do it.
So it sounds like they're learning by doing real work as opposed to simply sitting in a lecture hall.
They're absolutely not doing their work for the teacher, they're doing it for their audience, and that's what drives all of the success that we have at Pali.
Now, do you grade them using traditional written tests, or is it mostly how they perform actually putting the publication together that determines what kind of grade they get?
They're graded on a variety of things, including their general presence and their participation in the classroom, but clearly their product and the end product are key in that. And we give, I'd have to say, we give a lot of A's because they do the work. They do it well.
Do they decide themselves who gets what job as far as who's an editor and who's a reporter, or do you still have to?
Yes, so we might provide some guidance, but generally the outgoing staff makes the decisions about the incoming staff. The new editors can then make decisions on the fly for the coming year. So we guide that process, but that part is also student-run.
Now, you were named 2009 National Journalism Teacher of the Year by the Dow Jones Newspaper Fund. Could you tell us anything about how that came about?
So the News Fund, they've just changed their name actually from Newspaper Fund to News Fund, and I think that the switch from newspaper to news is telling. In addition to the magazine, I also oversee the website, and that is the direction that the professional journalism industry is headed, and the students have to get there too. So the Pali Voice has been a leader in that for multiple years, and I think that was one of the very biggest reasons why they wanted to focus on our program.
Now, the Pali Voice, that's the web portal.
Yes.
Now, does that overlap with the other publications, the online version, or is it a whole separate operation?
It's a separate staff of 30 students. Up till this year, they would take the work of all those other publications and upload it, and then they would provide their own coverage of news and sports, primarily in between issues of those other publications. In fact, we've got about 200 advanced journalism students at Pali, which meant that website had constant turnover in terms of its content. That's one of the great things about that website in particular. This year, we decided that we were kind of done having that web journalism staff just do the mechanical job for the other publications of uploading their work. And so we handed out passwords to all 200 of those students, and now they're uploading their own work. And we think that's really an important step. They are now, the day we did that, we had 30 digital journalism students. Now we created another 170 digital journalists. And you can see that in their thinking, that they really understand that. I think that you can see them embracing the digital age much more.
Well, that sounds like a very impressive thing. We have more video from Palo Alto High School. We're going to show that video and then return for our final discussion about the Palo Alto High School journalism program. So let's go ahead and roll that tape. The students put out another publication, a news and feature magazine called Verde. I spoke to some of the editors while sitting on a large beanbag. I'm here with 4 students who are involved in Verde, which is a magazine, a news magazine put out here in the Pali Journalism Department. We're sitting on bean bags because some people feel that this helps people relax, and they're probably right. What would you say is the most important skill you're learning by working on Verde? Start with Max.
I would say that the most important skill that I'm learning is just journalistic skills, in the sense that delivering information to the people that need it, and so that when I grow up, or when I'm in the real world, I can deliver information to people, or also be more of an informed citizen, and be part of the society that I'm in better.
Okay.
The skill that I've kind of learned from Verde is just sharing, bouncing off ideas off each other, and working well with a big group of people and organization, and just all contributing to get the job done.
I think one of the things that I've learned the most is kind of overcoming timidity, I guess, in terms of inside the classroom and also in interviews, how to reach out to people both among the staff and among the Pali community.
Yeah, I think communicating with people is a really big one for me, and learning how to really appeal to people on a really basic level. I think that both working with the staff and figuring out how to get my ideas across and help people and get the help I need has been really good for me.
Do you feel that the skills you're learning here will stand you in good stead, later in life? Do you expect to use this? Do you think maybe you'll have a career in journalism or write professionally? Where can you take this?
Absolutely. I think that the skills I'm learning here will definitely help me later in life, especially probably more than some of my other classes even. Some of what Sarah was talking about, working together with people, will definitely help, and also we do ads and we have to sell ads, so more of a business thing there. And even if I don't go into journalism, I think that there are plenty of skills that I've learned here that'll help me later on.
Yeah, I guess what he just said, but I feel like Verde's more like a real job, because you have deadlines and people are dependent on you, so you're not really focused on your grades, but it's more like you're trying to do the deadlines because other people need you to do it.
Another thing I think that we're learning is managing, especially as now we're in charge, since we're editors. We really have to manage deadlines and manage the staff and make sure that the magazine gets finished. So it really is like a job, like Ali said, like a professional commitment, and that we're in charge. So I think managing skills are definitely something that I'm going to bring into whatever career I'm going to go into.
I think I will definitely be involved in journalism sometime in the future. I think I'd love to be involved in a college publication. I don't know if I'll go into that career after school, though. We'll see. But I do think that it's been really helpful for us to learn how to communicate concisely to people and try to make sense of a topic.
The school has a well-equipped broadcast studio where students learn all aspects of broadcast journalism. Mike McNulty is the broadcast journalism teacher.
Each day we put together a newscast for the rest of the campus. Essentially it takes what most people would know as the daily bulletin, and we transcribe that, re-script it, and then we have a 5-minute show where we do they'll do the news, and they'll usually do a tape feature along with that.
Is it all news about the high school itself?
Yes, everything is. It's only about Pali.
So does everyone do everything? Everyone on crew gathers the material, writes it, and delivers it, or do people specialize?
Generally, the anchors will, and we have 5 different sets of anchors, 2 for each day, and they will usually put the script together, and then we have a crew that works in the background here.
Is this an extracurricular activity, or is this actually part of a class? Like if you take your class, you're going to be broadcasting the news.
No, it's a class. It's not extracurricular at all.
And what do you think is the most important thing you're teaching the students?
Well, hopefully how to work together. I think that's probably, if there's one thing that's going to come out of this, it's the ability to work with other people and put together a combined product.
I also spoke to one of the student producers.
Well, I'm one of the executive producers of the program, and usually during the week I am one of the main directors of the show. We do a live telecast to our student body every week, every day, and we do 5 shows a week. And I am the one who helps organize everything and make sure all the bells and whistles are working correctly.
What would you say is the most important thing you're learning in this program?
Well, I'm definitely learning about how media plays an important role in a society, because I guess the way that things run in here is I can make lots of comparisons to how they run in a greater society, and how like the director has an important role, and everybody else is there to help the director create a product that is high quality and that people enjoy to watch.
Okay, that was our final video from Palo Alto High School. Esther, in addition to teaching the technical skills of being a journalist, do you also teach some kind of journalistic ethic or journalistic culture, or anything about the mission or purpose of journalism, something that kind of puts this whole experience in a larger context?
Yes, we do teach the ethics of journalism. It's really important for kids to learn the ethics. And
what are the ethics of journalism?
The ethics are basically, we like to say that the press is like the watchdog for society. And kids are supposed to do their best to try to understand what's really going on and then try to tell the truth. So you have to be accurate. You have to double check all your facts. You have to make sure that you get sources on both sides. And so it's really important for them. We've had some pretty controversial things at the school, and it's important to get those facts straight because they impact people's lives. And they, even though it's a high school, you know, everybody has, it can impact their life no matter what.
Paul, is it possible to do journalism without giving it some kind of slant, even if all your facts are accurate, by your choice of which facts to put in, and you only have so much space, so you have to make those news judgments? I mean, do you teach kids to be objective, or is it assumed that somehow the point of view of the writer is always going to be present in the article?
Well, the point of view of the writer is always going to be present to some degree, but you train them to that it's important that you attempt to eliminate as much of that as possible, and you aim for that. Your audience expects and hopes that you're doing your best to eliminate as many of your biases as you can. Certainly in the professional world, they've got a lot of models of people who are not doing that, and I think that there's a market for people for news that is unbiased, and I also think it's important to train students in the difference. And we get a lot of this done in our beginning journalism class, and they practice in the advanced journalism class. And this distinction between news and opinion, the critical thinking that goes into writing a great story, it's important for our journalism students, but we think that it's probably something that should go beyond journalism. And so I think you'd find that Esther and I are working on ways to suggest that more students get exposed to this curriculum.
You know, the internet is changing journalism very rapidly. Nobody quite knows where it's going. Esther, do you have any thoughts on what journalism is going to look like 10 or 20 years from now?
Well, it's going to be primarily digital, but what we're working on, actually, Paul and I at Palo Alto High School, together with a group at Stanford and at State University of New York, we're working on a curriculum that would teach kids nationwide, basically how to use the web intelligently. And so back in the old days, we all used to spend a lot of time in the library. So I would take my classes to the library, and the question was, so how do you find the information in the library? And how to use the card catalog? And how do you use this periodical reference guide? They're looking it up. So today what we're doing is we're devising a curriculum that would teach kids basically the same skills, because our library is really on the web. And so the question is, how do you use that web intelligently? And it's not just for journalism students, it's really for kids everywhere.
So do you think we'll get to the point that nobody comes to your house in the morning to drop a newspaper on your doorstep, but instead you'll get an automatic digital download to your iPad or some similar device every morning instead?
We're already there.
We already have so many people. I mean, just let's look at the newspapers and their circulation. But I should just say, interestingly enough, students still like having paper products. They love having a magazine in their hand and looking at the magazine. And so we did a little sort of straw poll in the class, and it looked like the majority of kids really preferred to have a magazine to relax with. They didn't really want to relax with their computer. And the iPad, interestingly enough, kids don't see the iPad in the same way that adults do and that children do.
It's still pretty new.
It's pretty new, but we did a little poll, and the kids basically felt that the iPad was a large iPod, and they wondered, you know, they thought it was a little too big for their pocket, and they noticed that you couldn't make a phone call with it.
But you can read the screen.
Yes, they said you could read the screen, but they don't have those same problems with their eyes that we do. And so actually they didn't mind reading those little tiny screens. And
nonetheless, I think that you're going to see a Pali Voice version of the iPad within a year.
It probably will be, yeah. We're still targeting that, but you know, I think that the iPad market is will be really popular with adults. And until the parents are willing to spend the $500 per iPad per kid, I'm not sure it's going to be as popular with the teenage market.
Is your program influencing other programs? And we only have about half a minute left. But is what you're doing setting an example that other school systems are following, so your paradigm is sort of spreading?
We get requests weekly for people who want to set up something like the Pali Voice, and they want to know how we do what we do. So in that sense, yes. Whether or not they can all get there, that's another question, but a lot are, and it's exciting to watch them all.
Right. And then this program that we're creating, this curriculum, we hope that it will help other schools get to that point too.
Okay, great. We're going to have to wrap because we are just about out of time. I've got the signal. I'd like to thank you both for being here. Esther Wojcicki, Paul Kandell, terrific subject. You've got a great thing going. I wish you success.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. And I'm Marty Wasserman. Be sure to tune in again next time, and please visit our website, www.futuretalk.net. For Future Talk, we'll see you again next time. Okay. Now the mics are off so we can talk.